But wherever you are, you never give up on your dreams. Most people have great goals. I want to increase my income and lose weight and get out of debt and be thin and happy and healthy and have a wonderful family. But then they decide, but before I start, I'm going to take a vacation to a beautiful place called Someday Isle. And in my estimation, 80% of the population lives on Someday Isle. Someday I'll lose some weight, and someday I'll read that book and listen to that program and join the Yes Network, and someday I'll get out of debt, someday I'll increase my income, but it's always Someday Isle. If you want to be a great success, there's one simple rule, is vote yourself off the island for life. If you decide you're going to do something, do it. You know, they've done dozens and dozens of studies over the years. They find that there's one major difference between successful people and unsuccessful people. And successful people launch. They start. They get on with it. They just do it. Unsuccessful people get the same ideas and the same information, but they've always got an excuse for not starting. You want to be successful in starting a business, then you study what people have learned, and everything that people have learned they've written down or shared in seminars or put onto audio programs is, I learned this from a very wise man named Kopmeyer, who spent more than 50 years studying success. And he had developed more than 1,000 success principles that he had derived out of something like 6,000 books. And when I met him, I asked him the question you would ask. Of all these 1,000 principles, because I had studied it all, which is the most important principle of all? And he said, Brian, he said, it's simple. He said, use proven success methods. He said, learn from the experts. He said, Brian, you'll never live long enough to learn it all for yourself. So what I find is that successful people are those who learn from others who've gone before them. Unsuccessful people try to make it all up, like a cook going into the kitchen, taking ingredients out of the cupboards, throwing them all in a bowl, and wondering why it doesn't taste good. This is why people's sales careers, why 80% of salespeople are functioning well below their potential. Only 20% make all the money. Why 20% of businesses in any industry make all the profits. Why 20% of the professionals in any service make 80% of the money, and so on. It's because they follow proven success principles, proven recipes, proven formulas, proven combinations, and they just do them over and over again until they master them. Then they can do more and more of them, faster and faster, easier and easier, at a higher level of quality. And all that translates into greater results. The list of 10 things, 10 goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next year or so, and ask this question. If I could only accomplish one goal on this list, which one goal would have the greatest positive impact on my life? If you could only accomplish one goal in life, which one goal would have the greatest positive impact on your life? Now, for most people, especially when you're maturing in your career, when you're growing up, the biggest goal is money. If you had money, then you could buy a house, home, car, family, lifestyle, and so on. So that's quite normal. For other people, it may be a health goal. For business owners, maybe a business goal. For people with relationship problems, maybe a relationship goal. But ask yourself, if you could achieve one goal or resolve one problem, and remember, a problem unsolved is merely a goal unachieved, which one would it be? And write that down and make that the major definite purpose of your life. Make it the central organizing principle of your life. When I was a young man, I had a revelation that changed my life. I had read articles and sometimes books on time management over the years and made some lists and set some priorities and things like that. And I always felt, however, that my life was the sun and that all the different factors of my life were like planets that orbited around my life. And whether that was physical fitness or socializing or work or time management, they were all planets in orbit. What changed my life was when I realized that time management is the sun and everything that I do is the planets in orbit. Everything we do in life revolves around time because time is life. Time is the substance of our life. Is that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your time management. That everything we have or are or ever will be a direct result of how we use our time. And the wonderful thing is we're always free to choose how we use our time. There's a process which has made more people rich than any other single process of goal achieving. And it's to take your major goal and structure it as a question. If your goal is to earn $100,000 a year, then you write, how can I earn $100,000 in the next 12 months? Now, that's an open-ended question, not how can I earn it at my job or doing a specific thing, just an open-ended question, how can I earn the amount of money? And then you discipline yourself to write 20 answers to the question. And the 20 answers are all the different things that you could think of to earn $100,000. Work longer, work harder, upgrade my skills, get a new job, take a part-time opportunity. Whatever it happens to be, write down everything you could think of, but force yourself to write at least 20 questions, or 20 answers to the question. The 20-question method, called mindstorming, forces you to dig deep, deep into your mind where you will find all your answers. And it may be call a person, read a book. Let me give you an example. We had a young fellow, entrepreneur, he got 35 years old. He'd built a successful business. He'd worked about 10 years to do it. And he, for 2 years, wanted to sell his business so he could take a year off and travel, enjoy his money. And so for 2 years, he just sort of floundered around like a fish on the dock, wanting to sell his business. Nobody offered to buy it. He suggested it to people. People were not interested, and so on. And in this exercise that they put him through, his 20th answer, and often it's the 20th answer that is the breakthrough, was buy a book on how to sell your own business. And it just went off like a flashbulb in his mind. At the break, he got up. It was a downtown hotel. Got up, went down to the street to a major bookstore, went and found, he was amazed at the number of books that had been written on how to buy and sell a business. So he bought 2 or 3 books. 2 months later, he had restructured, packaged his business, sold it completely, satisfactorily, and took a year off. He said, but it was just a single idea. It was a breakthrough idea. But it was so simple, just get a book on the subject. And you think, boy, that's pretty obvious, yes? But it's the most obvious answers that we overlook.
The starting point of becoming a millionaire is to remember the greatest discovery of all of human life, which is that you become what you think about most of the time. If you sincerely want to be rich, to achieve all your financial goals, and to retire as a self-made millionaire, one of the smartest things you can do is to develop the habits of thinking and acting that have enabled others to become self-made millionaires. What is so hard about this to understand? Most people are thinking of how little money they have. They worry about being broke. They're worried about lack and poverty. They're worried about the prices of everything, and they're wondering why they're not flourishing financially, because they're thinking about poverty and lack rather than prosperity and abundance. Now, these habits of financial success are learnable, as all habits are, by practice and repetition. In other words, you can program yourself to think like self-made millionaires. And remember, it has to start on the inside before it ever comes true on the outside.
Here's an important point. Nothing works the first time. When you try something new, it probably won't work. When you try something new several times, it probably won't work. And the turning point in my life came when I would hear good ideas, and I was so eager to be successful in selling. I would run out and try the ideas, and they wouldn't work. I'd try a way of getting an appointment or answering an objection or closing a sale. It wouldn't work. And my natural response, and I think just to be disappointed. And then I realized nothing works, at least the first few times. So I decided I would try a new idea 5 or 10 times before I passed judgment on it. I would not just try it once and quit like most people do, and that changed my whole life. It was the turning point of my life, because I realized from then on, if you've got a good idea and you've got a good goal and you want to double your income and improve the quality of your life, and you have to try new things in order to get new results, it's not going to work the first time. So you say, well, that didn't work, try something else and try something else and try something else. Now, if you try, only 2 things can happen. What are they? Succeed or fail. If you succeed, you do more of it. If you fail, you learn from it, get smarter, and try it again. So you cannot lose by taking action. You can only lose by not taking action.
Natural tendency when we hear or learn something great is we want to convince everybody else of it. All right, and you see this, people who quit smoking suddenly want there to be no smoking in the world. People who adopt a religion or a political philosophy want everybody to join the next day. But the very best thing, as I mentioned earlier in our seminar, is that you must teach men at the school of example, for they will learn at no other. So what you need to do is be an example, and be an example for an extended period of time. Give yourself 2-3 months, maybe a year, of being the new person. When you go on a diet, don't insist that everybody else go on a diet the next day. Actually go on the diet, stay on the diet, lose the weight, achieve the level of financial fitness, and attract people so they come to you and say, what is it that you're doing? Or what is it that you're reading? Or what is it that you have that makes you different? Only then, when they reach out, do you offer it to them. The flip side of this is that in the main, people don't change. You can change, and you'll find it much easier to change if you're with positive people. Very hard to change with people who don't want you to change, who want you to be the person that you were. But in the main, people don't change. So sooner or later in life, you're often going to have to make some hard choices. In the short term, be the person, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. Be the kind of person that you want to see. And if that does not bring people around, then be prepared to go to the next step. Be prepared to walk away.
Well, Aristotle said that 95% of everything you do is the result of habit. So the rule is form good habits and make them your masters, rather than allowing bad habits to form. In fact, the other rule says this, is that good habits are hard to form, but easy to live with. Bad habits are easy to form, but hard to live with. Now, one of the turning points in my life and my studies of psychology was the discovery that all habits are learned and can be unlearned. Actually, you don't actually unlearn a habit, you simply replace a bad habit with a good habit that has more power and impact. And how do you develop a good habit? You develop a habit by repetition. Almost everything you do from the time you get up in the morning is habit. So start to think about yourself. What would be the best habits to have? Good question. At what age should one give up on their dream? Never. Goethe said this, Henry Ford said this, Rockefeller said this, you're only as young or as old as your dreams. And as long as you still have dreams and visions and goals, they keep you young. It's the most amazing darn thing. One of the great stories is the story of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Harlan, and Harlan was taught by his mother a special recipe down south in the United States on how to make chicken. When he grew up, he got a job as a short order cook in a small cafe. And he asked his boss if his boss would be interested in this chicken recipe. And his boss said, sure, throw it together, see what the people say. Turned out that everybody liked this special chicken recipe with all these secret herbs and spices. Well, for the rest of his career, right up till he was 65 years old, he either worked in little cafes or sometimes he owned a little cafe. When he was 65, he had a little cafe and he was making his chicken, and he had people coming from all around to eat his chicken. And the highways department built a highway past his little restaurant, his little chicken place, and put him out of business. They cut off the road so nobody could get to it. About the same time, he received a Social Security check, his first Social Security check at the age of 65. And he became angry. He said, I'm 65 years old, but I'm not ready to give up on my dreams. What do I have to sell? And he realized the one thing that had kept him going all those years, the mainstay of his little career, was his mother's recipe of 17 or 18 herbs and spices. So he put them together in little bags, one bag per chicken, and he put his pots and pans in the back of his old car, and he started driving up and down the eastern seaboard, going from cafe to cafe to cafe, to ask them if they would pay him 5 cents a bag for his magical combination of herbs and spices. He called on more than 1,000 restaurants, sleeping in his car week after week, and finally he came across a little restaurant in Toronto that agreed to pay him 5 cents a bag for his herbs and spices. This is back in the 60s. And because of exchange controls, they had to give the money to the Red Cross. That was the beginning of the Kentucky Fried Chicken empire. We began to sell this recipe more and more. People began to put it on their signs. A major corporation came along and said we could make a real business of this. So they embraced him, they built the franchise, they made him one of the best known people in the world. When he died some years later, he was worth more than $50 million because he never gave up on his dreams. So I don't know if you're 65 and broke and living in your car with pots and pans with no money, but wherever you are, you never give up on your dream.
We say that in zero-based thinking, you ask this question: is there anything that I am doing today that, knowing what I now know, I wouldn't get into again today if I had to do it over? We call this a QUINK analysis. Knowing what I now know, QUINK. In times of rapid change, there are always areas in your personal and business life that, knowing what you now know, you wouldn't get into again today if you had to do them over. Your willingness to ask and honestly answer this question is the key to remaining flexible and quick on your feet in times of turbulence. How can you tell if you have a zero-based thinking situation in your life or business? Simple. Stress. Whenever you experience ongoing chronic stress about any person or situation, you should ask yourself, if I was not now in this situation, knowing what I now know, would I get into it again today? This is a great question. Now here's another question for you. What percentage of the time do you think that you will turn out to be wrong? Well, the answer, according to the American Management Association, is about 70%. 70% of your decisions will turn out to be wrong in the fullness of time. It's amazing how many people will stay in a bad situation or continue with a bad course of action because of their unwillingness or inability to admit that they made a mistake or that they were wrong in the past. But remember this, when you made the decision, it was probably a good decision based on the situation at that time, but now the situation has changed. Now you have to evaluate your situation based on the current reality.
Recognize that everything that you achieve in life is going to be with the help or support or cooperation of other people. So always think, what is it that other people want and need from me? How can I help other people so they'll want to help me back? If you're in sales, top salespeople think about their customers all the time. They think about who their customers are and what their customers want and how they can help them the most and how they can help them even more today. In their relationships, successful people are very focused on the most important people in their worlds, both personal and in business. If you've made a mistake or something has happened in the past that's unfortunate, you can cancel it out by simply saying the magic words, I am responsible. I am responsible. I am responsible. If someone has hurt you or you've had a difficult experience in your childhood, you can say, well, I didn't do anything. Yes, but you're responsible for how you respond today. A Nobel Prize-winning study of the evolution of civilizations came up with the term responsibility. Is your ability to respond effectively with the ups and downs and negative events of life is the key measure of your ability to be successful and happy in the future. And what you do is you say, whenever you feel negative or unhappy about anything, you say, wait a minute, I'm responsible. I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for what happens. I can't change the past, so I'm not going to spend a second worrying about the past. I'm going to become so busy working on my future and my goals that I don't have time to think about the past.
Ask my entrepreneurs, I say, why do you get up and go to bed in the morning, go to work in the morning? Why do you get out of bed? And they say, they think about it for a while. And I say, well, the answer is MMM, which means make more money. You don't go to work to make less money or to make the same money. You go to bed, you go to work to make more money. So I said, now how do you make more money? Well, it's called SMS, and that means sell more stuff. And so you MMN by SMSing. Now, if you are not selling more stuff in the course of the day, then you might as well go home to bed and pull the curtain, pull the covers up over your head and go back to sleep, because you're of no value to yourself or anyone else. And then I start to point out, I learned this from a very successful man. Look around your office, all right? Look around your office. Now, what don't you see in your office? And the answer is you don't see any customers, all right? So why are you in your office? There's no customers there, and you can't sell more stuff. And if you think you're going to sell more stuff by sending out tricky email messages, then you probably need some medication or a checkup from the neck up. The only way that you sell stuff is you go out there and you talk to customers and you ask them to buy it. And so if you're not out asking to buy it, now what are the 3 keys to selling more stuff? They are prospecting, presenting, and closing. Prospecting means finding new people who can and will buy and pay in a short period of time, and then telling them, presenting that your product or service and why it is the very best choice for them now, and then closing them and getting them to make a decision today, this minute. So therefore, they all come together is prospecting, presenting, and closing is how you sell more stuff, which is why you got out of bed in the first place. Now, so they interviewed, interesting point, because I've been through all of this myself. They've interviewed entrepreneurs and they say, how important are sales to your business? And the entrepreneurs say, oh, most important thing of all, oh, sales, blood to the brain, oxygen, to the heart. Without that, there's no business. I say, okay, well, next question the researchers asked is how much of your time in the course of the day do you spend selling more stuff? And they say, oh, all day long. That's all I do. It's all I think about. I get up in the morning, think about it all day. And so then they said, well, all right, do you mind if we follow you around with a camera and a stopwatch for 30 days and just see how you actually use your time? No problem at all. You know what they found out? The average entrepreneur spends 11% of their time prospecting, presenting, and closing.
Wow.
The other 89% is spent, excuse the expression, dicking around. They're doing fun things, easy things, checking their email again, sending out emails. They're making phone calls. They're checking their spam. They're spending so much time. 50% of working time today is wasted. And if they're not checking email, they're chatting with their friends, they're chatting with their buddies, and they're drinking coffee, and they're having lunch, and they're going around feeling like big shots because they've got their own business. But the fact of the matter is, if you're not prospecting, presenting, and closing, you might as well go home to bed because you're of no value. Even worse, you're probably a detriment to other people because you're stopping them from working by talking to them or sending them email or keeping them busy. Email, according to Harvard University, and about 3 studies I've read this week, is killing entrepreneurs because they can't stop. They have this irresistible, almost like an addiction to electronic interruptions, and they can't stop. And so just yesterday, Wall Street Journal had this great article, which is what I've been saying for the last 5 years, is turn it off. Don't turn it down, turn it off. Check it every 2 to 3 hours and then turn it off. Oh, what if it's an important message? Well, what you do is you say this: I check my email 3 times a day. If you sent me an email between those times, I will get back to you as soon as I can. If this is an emergency, phone this number. And the phone will never ring. And then what you do is you do three 20-minute phases a day. First of all, you do your first check is at 10:30 or 11. You do not check your email in the morning because that immediately addicts you and you're on email all day long. So you wait till 10:30 or 11, check it once. Wait till 2 o'clock, check it again. Wait till 4:30, check it the 3rd time. On and off in 20 minutes and shut it down. If you can do that, you'll double and triple your productivity. And that's one of about 100 ideas that I can give you. But if you'll just do that, that'll do more to help you to be successful in selling more stuff. Because if you're not wasting all this time doing that, you have only one choice, is to sell more stuff. Talk to customers, talk to people and ask them to buy your product. I'll give you a very simple process. I was teaching this to someone in Japan yesterday, actually a very large number of people in Japan yesterday. And it starts with a piece of paper and you. A piece of paper and a pen or pencil will make you rich. And we won't go into goal setting, it's a whole separate process, but make a list of everything that you have to do tomorrow. The best time to make your list is the night before. If you make a list of your whole day for tomorrow, your subconscious will work on your list overnight and you'll wake up in the morning with ideas and insights that are sometimes quite amazing. So you make a list and then you look at the list and you ask this simple question: if I could only do one thing on this list before I was called out of town for a month, which one task would I want to be sure to get completed? And put a circle around that, your list. Now, when you get up in the morning, whatever time you start, and that's a very interesting point, wealthy people get up in the morning by 6 a.m. Poor people get up at 7 or afterwards. Wealthy people get up earlier, poor people get up later. Real simple. So if you're getting up around 7 o'clock, you're always going to be poor. For the simple reason, by the time you get started, the day is half finished, and now you're checking your email and you're talking to your friends, and then it's lunchtime and coffee time and spam time and everything else. Get up at 6 o'clock and develop a ritual. Get up, exercise, then sit, plan your day, get organized, and start to hit it at 8 o'clock. And the first thing you do is you start on your most important task. And then you concentrate single-mindedly on that task. You do not turn on your email, you do not turn on your telephone, you don't do anything except that one task, and you just do this one task until it's completed. Now, you've already agreed with yourself and the world that there's nothing more valuable in the world than you could do than this one task. So do this. And if you develop a habit of getting up in the morning and starting and completing your most important task, it will transform your life. It's one of the most incredible productivity habits ever discovered. And every person who discovers it, you see their income, their productivity, their performance, and their satisfaction just explode. It's very simple. The question is, do you have the discipline? Do you have the self-control, the willpower to start and complete your most important task? If you don't have it, you can develop it with practice. If you develop with practice, it soon becomes easy and automatic. And if you just do this, your productivity will double the first day. Well, you just keep working at it and working at it. The best way of all is to plan it in advance. Instead of sitting down, never start work without a list, and never start work without prioritizing your list. People sit down and they say, well, before I make a list, I'll check a little email, check a little spam, send something to my friends, see what's going on YouTube, and so on and so forth. And then they look up and it's 10 o'clock and they haven't done anything of value. So what you do is you have to say, what do they say? That if you start it right, it'll work out right. So start it on your most important task, and do that until it becomes a habit. Now, here's an interesting thing about checking email: is when you check email, it triggers the release of dopamine in your brain. Dopamine is a drug, and by the way, there's all kinds of books and articles and scientific studies on this. And dopamine is the same drug in cocaine. And what it does is it's triggered every time you have a shiny object, or something new or different or interesting or sparkling. If a telephone rings next to you, you go bing, your brain releases endorphins, and you can't hardly wait to see what it is. So you're talking to somebody, and you could be talking to somebody about something very serious, and your telephone goes off, bing, your whole mind goes blank. The middle of the conversation stops. You grab for your phone, you pick it up, you look at it, you check it out and everything else. And then you come back. If you're working on a task, it takes an average of 17 minutes to get back to the task. And then there's another distraction, so another 17 minutes. Average adult is checking their email and their phone between 95 and 145 times a day. Which means they're like attention deficit disorder dogs. They're just literally running around back and forth the whole day. At the end of the day, they're exhausted. By the way, USA Today and Harvard have proved that you lose 1 IQ point for every hour that you leave your email on. At the end of the day, you've lost 10 IQ points. You actually become stupider throughout the day, dumber. And I ask this of my audiences. I say, have you ever finished a day where you don't think you've accomplished anything? You've been on email, responding to bings and beeps and rings and so on all day. And at the end of the day, you go home and honey says, what do you want for dinner? And you say, I don't know. I don't care. Anything. I just want to drink. Because you're so exhausted, you cannot even decide. Sit there and basically like you've just been, punched in the side of the head, because your brain is dead and you lose 10 IQ points. You get stupider throughout the day. You've got to turn that darn thing off if you want to remain sharp. Develop the habit. You say, I'm going to develop the habit, and I'm going to give myself my reward, and my reward will be to check my email after I finished my first task. So all of success in life is task completion. Let me repeat that. I just had a long conversation with an entrepreneur, and he almost fell off his chair. I was coaching him, and he said he'd never heard that before. And then I spoke to this group I was telling you in Japan. I told them the same thing. and they were just flabbergasted. Is the key to success in life is task completion. If you don't complete tasks, you have no future. And so if task completion is the key, then what you do is you complete more and more important tasks. And if you start every day by completing the most important task, your brain actually releases endorphins. Now, endorphins is another chemical, and it's only released when you do something that is life enhancing. And what that means is when you do something that is good for you, that enhances your life, that furthers you, it makes you happy. It releases energy. It raises your self-esteem. I sort of say, if you want to be a winner, how do you be a winner? Well, you win. And winning means you cross a finish line. So if you start and complete a task, you're actually winning. And you get a feeling of being a winner, which gives you a suffusion of energy and inspiration, and it drives you and motivates you to want to get that feeling again. So how do you get that feeling again? You start and complete another task. So I've developed a habit, and people who are successful have developed the habit of starting and completing tasks. So my wife comes in and says, dinner's in 5 minutes. So I look at my list and I say, okay, there's a 5-minute task. And what do you start and complete a 5-minute task? And each time you complete a task, you get a burst of endorphin. The bigger the task, the more endorphin. The more endorphin, the more quickly you become addicted to starting and completing important tasks. And every single successful person has a reputation for starting and completing important tasks. You want the job done, give it to him or her. You want the product served on time, you want the product completed, you want the product manufactured, shipped, delivered. Give it to him, give it to her, give it to that company, because they always deliver. That's the best reputation you can have if you want to get rich. I'm assuming that everybody who is watching this wants to become rich sooner or later, and sooner is preferable, all right? The way that you become rich is you deliver results that people will pay you for, all right? Well, one of the greatest result tools in the world is called a checklist. And a checklist is very simply a list of every step in the process from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, very much like a recipe that is organized, that says this is what you do to prepare a particular dish. You do these things and you do these things and you bring out these things and you take these ingredients in this order, in this quantity and so on, and you put it all together. So some years ago, I did something which was really quite ridiculous. I wrote a book and I promoted the heck out of it. It cost me more to promote the book than I got from royalties or advances. And then after 3 months, they told me that we have no more interest in promoting your book. And I said, well, why? I mean, we were doing so well, interviews, blah, blah, blah. They said, well, after 3 months, the window closes. Is when you write a book, there's a 3-month window prior to the book coming out, and 3 months after it comes out, and then it closes, we go on to other books. Your book is now an old story. It's yesterday's news. And I said, well, geez, what can I do with that? I said, I know, I'll write a book every 3 months. And I made that decision. I'm just now working today to finish my 82nd book. It'll be finished by Friday. And all with major publishers. Every one is published by major publishers, no self-publishing. And I'm talking about Simon & Schuster and Wiley, and I have just published 4 books with the biggest publisher in the world, Penguin Random House, and they came to me and asked for the book. So a person says, well, how do you write a book? I say, I take out my checklist, and I say, the first thing I need to know, we need to agree on the subject, all right? And I only write on a subject that I put in hundreds of hours of research and experience. The second thing we need to know is when is the drop dead date? When do you plan to publish the book, release the book, and when do you have to have it in your hands, which is usually fully 6 months before the book is published, okay? So I work back from there, and then I've got a checklist. Now I know what the subject of the book is, when the book has to be in the hands of the publishers, and then I work all the way back to step 1. And step 1, and by the way, anybody who wants this, just go onto my website, briantracy.com, and just say Brian's checklist for writing. It's free. And it's 20 points, because people kept asking me, how do you write so many books? I've written now 4 or 5 books a year for 20 years. And now I say, well, I'm out of it now. I'm done. This last 2 months, I've gotten requests for 5 books for 2017 from this publisher and that publisher, and one other publisher wants 2. And I said, geez, I said, we're going to take a break. No, we want the books because these books sell. They just kind of tumble over each other. One sells and the second sells. I said, so here's the formula. Just simply download the formula like a recipe, follow the formula. it takes tremendous discipline to write a book. You can appreciate this because you've written your book, your one word. I said, writing a book is like digging a ditch to the horizon. Can you picture that? It's like, in other words, you just work and you lift up your head and all you can see is the horizon. You put your head down, you work and work and work. You look up, it's still the horizon out there, hour after hour after hour. But you got to get started. But many years ago, I met a fellow who was an entrepreneur like us, very successful. But I knew that for several years, he had been just kind of drifting through his career and suddenly took off. I mean, his business, he was just booming. His personality was completely different. He was starting early, working harder, staying later. He was up, he was positive. His income had gone over $100,000. And in another 2 years, it was over $200,000. And he was smoking. And so I asked him this question, and I never forgot the answer. I said, what was the turning point in your life? And he said, Brian, he said, I finally decided to get serious. I finally decided to quit screwing around. As I was talking all the time about I want to be successful and I want to make a lot of money and everything else. And I went home and watched television. And I started a little bit later and went for coffee with my friends during the day and so on. I finally decided that I'm going to get serious about this. And I put my head down. And from that time on, I started to get up earlier. I started to start earlier, work harder, stay later, don't waste time. Hammer, hammer, hammer. I'll give you another example, very simple. No successful entrepreneurs work less than 6 days a week. No successful entrepreneurs work less than 60 hours a week. Anybody who thinks that they can have balance and work 8-hour days and spend, time in their personal life and so on, that's good. Get a job working for wages and worry about money all your life. Drive a used car, have holes in your shoes, and eat macaroni and cheese, because that's what people do who work from 8 to 5. Every single person who is wealthy hits it all the time. They get up earlier, they start earlier, and they hit it, and they work longer hours. But here's the great payoff, is they're happy all the time. If you're doing something that you enjoy, like you talk about your values, your one word, if you're doing something that you enjoy and you're getting better and better at it, you love your work. My partner here is Eric Berman, and Eric and I have been together for 15 years. And we're talking about self-discipline. And what we find is it takes more discipline not to work than to work. I mean, we really have to promise ourselves and others and block off the time, make non-refundable deposits on vacations and things like that. Because other than that, we just love to work all the time. And so we work 10-hour days. If I work less than 10 hours, and I'm 72 now, if I work less than 10 hours, 6 days a week, I feel that somebody's going to find me out. They're going to take me away for defaulting on my responsibilities. And so it's really important. And if you are working on something that you enjoy and you're making progress, it gives you a steady flow of energy. You'll find that successful entrepreneurs are happy all the time. They're just smiling all the time. They just love what they do and they want to do more of it. Now, the other thing is this, which is one of the things that we teach in maximum productivity, is that you've got to get better and better at what you do. This has to be like breathing in, breathing out. All successful people, again, studying the habits of self-made millionaires, they invest at least an hour a day in reading in their field. I spend 3 hours a day reading. I've done that for 50 years or more. I just read all the time. I read on planes, I read on trains, I read on automobiles, I read at home in the morning, I read in the evenings, I read on vacations. As you look at my house, I've read more than 6,000 books and more than 100,000 articles. When I just got a call from a publisher saying, we don't have a book from you for next year. Can you write us a book? And I said, well, what kind of a subject would you like? Well, what would be a good subject? And they came up with the idea, get on with it. Something like, overcoming resistance, procrastination, lack of willpower, something like that. And I said, okay, I could write on that subject. I read on it all the time. So I could sit down, I could write a book on that subject. So what's your drop dead date? And I've got a drop dead date. I think it's March 31st or something like that. And so, okay, March 31st, I can work back, I'll have the book in your hands on time. It'll be released by the end of the year. But the thing is, I'm constantly taking in new information. So people say, well, how can you write so many books? If you read my books, they run from anywhere from 120 pages to 350 pages, and they're chock-a-block jammed full of content. There's no entertainment books. There's no stories about me. Some people think that they are the most fascinating person in the history of the world. And so if they write every thought and feeling they've ever had in their whole life and every experience and so on, that this is going to be fascinating reading for other people. No, nobody cares about your story. Everybody cares about their story. But what they do care about is getting better so they can earn more money faster. So if you want to have a successful book, write a book that gives people tools that enable them to get better results faster and easier and make more money. And people will buy the book by the thousands and tens of thousands, and in my cases, by the millions. Well, this morning I got an ad from Amazon before I came down here to talk to you, and it was the 12 best articles by Harvard Business Review. Best most practical articles on business success, condensed into a single book, $14.95. And what I do is I automatically click buy. When I see a good book, imagine 12 of the best articles from Harvard Business Review for 2016. What if there's one idea in one of those articles that saves me a year of hard work or doubles my income? So I don't say, oh, it's this $14.97 and blah, 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 blah. I just go click. If you see a good book or a good article or a good magazine with a good article in the magazine, buy it automatically. Don't even hesitate, because my friend Jim Rohn used to say, it's not the cost of the book, it's the cost to your life of not knowing what's in that book. It's the cost to your life. Many people have become rich as a result of a single book. I was meeting for 4 hours just late last week, and this man bought the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill when he was about 20 years old. No high school, 20 years old, salesman, not a good salesman. He read the book and he read it. And he read the book and it changed his life. He started a business, then another business. He said he read the book every single year for the last 50 years, and he made $1 million every time he read the book. And that $1 million added to another $1 million. He's worth $740 million today. He said, and he reads the book every single year, and every year he makes another $1 million, which goes onto the pile, goes onto the pile and onto the pile. And I've heard that kind of a story forever. One book can make you rich. My book, Maximum Achievement, he said he read Maximum Achievement. He said it was better than Think and Grow Rich. He wished he'd had it 20 years before. Because in your book, the one word, may give a person one insight, one idea about what they're doing or not doing that could change their whole lives. But if you don't read it, it's not possible for you to be exposed to that idea. And I just realized over the last couple of years that each one of us has turning points. As our lives are going along, and a turning point could be abrupt, the getting fired, going bankrupt, the end of a relationship or a marriage or something like that. It could be an abrupt turning point, or it could be just like sort of like a road that just kind of turns, and you kind of took this road. And then when you look back years later, you realize that that turning point changed your whole life forever. It could be just picking up a book. I have had a person write to me. He picked up one of my books he paid $1 for it at a used bookstore. He said within 3 years he was a millionaire. He said he didn't go to used bookstores. Here it was, and it's in a big box. And he just was sort of attracted to the title, and he picked it up, and it changed his life forever. And so you never know about these turning points. So going back to answering your question, I was 20 years old. I dropped out of high school. I was working on a construction job. I lived in a small apartment. It was 35 degrees below zero Fahrenheit outside. I had to take 3 buses. I had to get up at 5 in the morning and take 3 buses to my construction job. And then I had to take 3 buses back. I get back about 7:30, and I didn't have any money because it cost me everything I was earning as a construction laborer, carrying heavy stuff, to live. And I'm sitting there in I've got a little kitchen and a little bedroom. The bedroom and living room were the same one. I'd have to open up a couch to sleep and close it up so I could turn around. And I had a bathroom that was about as big as a telephone booth. So here I am sitting there, and it's cold as blazes, and I've got no money, and I've got no television. I've got no radio, I've got no music. I'm sitting there, and suddenly, like a light bulb, and I've written about this, I said a light bulb flashing in my face. I realized that this is my life. This is my life, and I am responsible. No one is going to come to the rescue. Nothing is going to change for me unless I change. Is nothing, nobody cares. I was 2,000, 3,000 miles from my parents and I wasn't going back, unemployed, no money. I'd gotten my old car and I drove in through an intersection and somebody was drunk and came and just ruined the car. And the car wasn't savable anyway. It was about a $50 car at that time. So now I couldn't even drive my old junker. Anyway, I said, this is my life. And suddenly it dawned on me, I am responsible. I am responsible. I am responsible. And that changed my life forever. Talk about a turning point. My life turned abruptly. That didn't mean that suddenly I was successful and so on. It took a long time because the second turning point for me, I realized it took a long time. Responsible for what? Well, I'm responsible for my own goals. So the second major turning point in my life is when I discovered goals. Oh my God, I still remember. I wrote down my first list of goals and 30 days later, my life had transformed. I couldn't believe how powerful goals are. And then the third turning point, I still remember these, I call them a golden triangle, was when I discovered continuous learning, personal development. That you could learn anything you needed to learn to develop any skill you needed to achieve any goal you could set for yourself. Those three turning points made my life. And then years and years later, funny, Stephen Covey became a friend of mine. I wrote the introduction testimonial for his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And if you look at Stephen Covey, his first chapter is Take Charge, Accept Responsibility. Jack Canfield is a dear friend of mine who wrote the Success Principles. First chapter, Accept Responsibility, Take Charge of Your Life. You'll find that the smartest people who have ever examined success say, without taking responsibility, nothing can happen. But when you take responsibility, which means no excuses, no blaming, no criticizing, no complaining, once you take responsibility, your future is unlimited. Question, it makes me happy every time I think about that moment when I realized I am responsible. The entire future of your life is going to be determined by the results that you get. One of the things that I teach, I say, what is your most valuable financial asset? And the answer is your earning ability, your ability to earn money. And your ability to earn money is your ability to get results that people will pay you for. And so if you can increase your ability to get results, you increase your ability to earn money. And one of the things you do is accept responsibility, set goals and plans, all of which we teach you, and also to continuously get better and better at the most important things that you do to get results to earn money. All right, so saying that with regard to this program, I always ask people, I say, how would you like to double your income? Anybody here like to double their income? And I'll ask this of 100 or 1,000, or in one audience I had 18,000 people. And everybody says, yes, of course. I say, well, I can give you 7 ways to double your income in the course of this seminar. And so I'll give them to you as the seminar goes along the right place. And I started the seminar and I come back and I say, well, why don't I start off with 1 way guaranteed to double your income tomorrow, 100% success rate worldwide. Would you like to hear that? Everybody says, yes, yes, yes. I say, well, it's very simple. I said, I want you to imagine that you have 2 types of tasks. You have tasks A, one side, and you have tasks B, okay? So tasks A are those tasks that move you directly towards your most important goals, all right? Tasks B are tasks that do not move you toward your most important goals, and even more, they move you away from your goals, all right? So if you want to double your income starting tomorrow, do only tasks A and stop doing tasks B. That's all. Just start doing only tasks A from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night. And I heard this wonderful one-liner, which will make you rich. Before you do anything, ask yourself, is this moving me toward my most important goal, or is it merely a distraction, a waste of time? Is this moving me toward my most important goal, or is it merely a distraction? And if it's a distraction, it's in task B. Stop doing it. It's almost like slapping a person's hand. Don't do things that are not moving you towards your most important goal. What is your most important goal? It's to double your income. How do you double your income? You get more results. How do you get more results? You do your most important tasks and you complete them. This is not a mystery. And I've had people come back to me over and over and say, I can't believe. Oh, and it worked. I doubled my income the following week. After 12 years of work in my field, I just disciplined myself not to do tasks B and only do tasks A. And anybody who's listening to this, I guarantee you, you'll double your income within the next few days if you just stop doing useless things. Those things that are moving you toward achieving the most important goals you have. And the most important goal you have is to double your income.